Hi. I was thinking to make a video today about pine cones and how I use them for kindling in that fire. And then I thought it is such a beautiful day and I got no work today, so I'd go out in the forest and get some and take the camera with me. And the other thing, I'll pack a bag, but I'll also take my hammock, because I find I'm getting older now and there's nothing more beautiful than being able to stop when you're tired or something's really peaceful and just put up the hammock and lay there for a while. Anyway, so a very lazy day, no work, and we'll focus on pine cones as kindling. I don't need loads of cones, a few go a long way, so I tend to just gather them in old shopping bags. It works for me. I find it a real luxury to go for a virtually pointless walk. And this is a woodland I've been going to for about 30 years now. It's on the edge of a vast area of Norfolk farmland. That's Norfolk, England, obviously. And that wood, massive and ominous, it was a wonderland for my 3 children. The track coming up on my right there, say again my left, is an old coach road, hardly used now, and sometimes I'd go into the wood that way. But today I want to go through a track that runs right through the middle of the wood. It's mid-August, a really warm day, probably about 30 degrees in the shade, but always cooler in a woodland. And the summer heat is really bringing us a good crop of blackberries. We have to go a fair bit into the woodland to get pine cones. It's mostly broadleaf in this area. It always reminds me of the lines by Robert Frost. The woods are lovely, dark and deep. My old boss didn't used to like those lines. He said they were spooky, but I think they're just beautiful. I know we're supposed to be looking for pine cones, but I think I just love everything about woodland and forest. Here's a wild angelica. Loads of little bugs and beasties crawling about on it. I've never eaten it, but you can, of course. I've never done this before. Just wandered out into the woods with a camera, having started off with a sort of single-minded purpose of going to get cones. I've drifted down memory lane, I'm afraid. Anyway, I just want to show you the pond that I used to take my children to about 25 years ago and teach them how to move on ice, and we did ice skating and, well, sort of, and ice hockey. But now with global warming, I don't think this pond has frozen at all for the last 10-12 years. Anyway, we'll look at that. One of the things I love about this 300 acres of forest is there are so many different habitats. Nothing to do with pine cones, I know, but just the joy of going out to get them. Anyway, we'd better get some cones. Finally, we're getting to the area where the conifers start. That big one there is a Corsican pine. I've had loads of really good cones off that one over the years. And it's interesting to see that it may well be a good mast year. The acorns are just terrific this year. The cones from Corsican pine are probably my favourite. They're plentiful and a fairly decent size, and after any period of fairly warm weather they open up, and that's really important. You can't light a fire with pine cones that are squeezed tight shut. That's a good start. I spent my whole boyhood playing in woodlands like this. My earliest memories pretty much are being in woodland. And it's nice that after an entire career as a woodland manager, I'm retired now, but I'm still happy to spend my free time out in this absolutely bustling natural world. Loads and loads of Corsican. But here we need to turn right if we're going to get some Scots pine. I got my left and right okay this time. We've arrived at the Scots pine area. Beautiful tree. Branching is less regular and you've got orangey bark. Cones are a little bit smaller, but I like these ones as well. This is an interesting area. If you go into a forest and see an absolute browse line like this, it tells you there are lots and lots of deer in the area. But also the ground is just littered with Scots pine cones. A lot smaller, but plentiful. And again, really good firelighters. The alder trees in this pond are all dead, and I'm really not sure what killed them. We're about half a mile into the woodland now, and we're leaving the pine area and soon be coming up to an area of mixed conifer. I just love the variety in here. First, some alders. I've stopped to film these because it's just about possible. Well, it might in fact be the only broadleaf I know of that has cones. There they are. No good for firelighting, I don't think, but people paint them gold and make them into decorations and things. And now a larch. Beautiful. Little roundish cone with reflex scales. So it's possible this is Japanese larch, but the twigs are straw coloured, so I think it was a hybrid larch. This is Douglas fir. Really mighty, big block of them here. I think they're some of the biggest trees in this particular forest. There are some big poplars, but these Douglas, they're just great, and they will get an awful lot bigger. Cones not so plentiful and not so good as firelighters, but I always gather a few. Now, this is me fed up, had enough with the heat and the cones, and deciding to make use of my hammock. I've never approached this tree without a sense of awe. It's an oak, it's hundreds of years old. It was here before the forest was here. An ancient pollard, possibly a boundary marker, and it was my favourite tree to climb with my children, and well, it was just the place we headed for. And the branches, as you can see, are just superb for hammocks. To make it a little bit more exciting, I called it the Great Oak, thinking of Robin Hood. But in all honesty, I don't think you need to make this one more exciting. Also, I tend to get in a hammock really carefully. I do woodland club with the village school, and once when demonstrating a hammock it snapped. I plunged to the floor and the children pretty much wet themselves laughing. Anyway, this is nice. I think this is me for the day. No more cones. I slept for about half an hour and then headed home as the shadows are lengthening. I've a small bag of cones and am totally refreshed from my afternoon in the woods. Good luck to all of you.